Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse, and you are our wonderful Patreon patrons. Welcome to the Patreon bonus story.
Before we get into the stories,
Yes.
a couple things. First of all, I think that the code word has been working really well. So
Yep.
remember that if you want to email us or Facebook us or Patreon us or wherever, use the code word Silverstone.
Right. You don't have to use the code word if you're Patreon.
Right, because you're already
if
there.
you're on Patreon, right?
But like that way we know that it's you, and it's been working out really great because it allows us to like filter through the messages really quickly. So thank you for doing that. And also I just want to plug our live stream. We tried a new thing this week, and if for like the 25 of you who are on it, like it was a lot of fun. We use Zoom, which is a platform that, unlike YouTube, Zoom allows us to actually talk to you. So if you have a webcam, you can actually just pop on there, ask us a question, or talk to us about something. So we actually got to interact with everyone. I loved it.
So nice. If even if you don't like it, I liked it. It was so fun to actually be able to see people from all around the world asking questions, talking about things. We're all laughing along. It's nice to see people laughing. Because like when we're recording this show, I can make some funny joke. I can be like, oh, this is going to go Frankenstein. And then everyone at home is, maybe you're laughing, maybe you're not. I'm just looking at a black screen.
Right.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
So that was really, really nice.
Wouldn't it be cool if like in the future we could have like almost live streaming our thing so we could have that feedback? It is weird to be in a studio with nobody here and, you know, talking to ourselves.
Right.
You know, having that feedback, I just felt it today. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So be on the lookout. We're going to try it again next month. Right. So let's continue the story that we were talking about in the main part of the show, Green Cab Madison. Let's cut to the reporter from Channel 15 in Madison. Amelia, take it away.
Well, Green Cab Madison is living up to their name. They are adding all-electric Teslas to the mix.
I will take a cab anywhere you want me to go if I can ride in a Tesla. These new Tesla 3 models are hitting the streets today, and our Amelia Jones is live with more. Good morning, Amelia.
Good morning. Take a look at this Tesla Model 3 that has the lovely Green Cab logo, as they are the new electric cabs that are hitting the streets starting today. It's all part of a collaboration with 2 local companies, Zerology and Green Cab Madison. Green Cab, it's been a ride-sharing experience here in our city since 2010, but this new collaboration, they estimate that they'll be able to save around 8.5 metric tons of carbon per year per car. So here's how it works. If you would like to get a ride-sharing experience in these new cars, you download the Green Cab Madison app and you type in your destinations as if you would if you were calling a normal green cab. Coming up, we will be joined with someone from Zerology and talk more about how this idea came to be. That's coming up live in Madison. Amelia Jones, NBC 15 News.
Here. Tesla 3s hitting the streets today, and I'm surprised Amelia could even hear them in the parking lot. Those things are so quiet. There she is right there outside the studio. Good morning, Amelia.
Good morning. It is really quiet, and it's the first all-electric fleet for Green Cab that, you're right, it's going to start hitting the streets today. And I'm joined with Cherie Cullery, who is the CEO and founder of Zerology here in Madison. And you all invested with Green Cab for this collaboration. So I got to ask you, why Teslas out of all the electric vehicles that are out there?
Because Teslas are the best technology that's available today. But it's not about Teslas, it is about all electric vehicles, right? Because they are zero emission vehicles. That's what we want to do going forward, is eliminate emissions from the roads of Madison.
Why were you partnering with Green Cab? How long have you been talking about this?
We have been talking since the spring, and Jody and Johnny are kindred spirits. They started this 12 years back, and they introduced all hybrids, and now we are taking it to the next level and eliminating even those emissions that the hybrids put out there.
What's the future of this project?
The future is not just about cabs. Every single mode of transportation we want to revolutionize and eliminate all the emissions and the congestion from our beltline.
All right, well, we can't argue with that here in the city of Madison. We know that we have made some steps to reduce our carbon footprint. Thank you so much, Cherie, for joining us this morning. Metro, they have gone all they're adding electric vehicles. I apologize. And the city of Madison has also added electric vehicles to their fleet as well. So if you would like to call Green Cab, you can download their app, and one of these Teslas is what's going to pick you up, and it'll be the same price as any other cab you will take. Live in Madison, Amelia Jones, NBC 15 News.
Guys, styling this morning. White
Very
suit
nice.
jacket, standing against the cab, looking good.
Yeah, you got to look good if you're standing next to a Tesla.
Yeah. Teslas are nice cars for
No
sure.
kidding.
You know, I think the most favorite part of those 2 videos to me was the anchor people back in the studio who are like, "Oh, you're so lucky to get to ride in a Tesla."
It's really funny how people who are not in the sphere of Tesla treat Tesla.
Yeah.
They either treat it like, I don't know what the heck this is. That's really glitzy and fancy. Or they're just like, oh, it's so quiet. Like they haven't experienced it enough to
Right.
be like, it's cool and you should just check it out. They're
Yeah.
just like, I don't know. I have to
But
be a talking head.
Here's
here."
what's really cool. 40 Teslas that are available for rideshare in Madison means that so many people, hundreds and thousands, are going to get to experience Teslas way more than you could do if they were owned by people, right? Because even if you're great at sharing them off, you can't share it that much.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a huge game changer. I bet they're going to see a huge uptick in sales in that area.
I definitely agree. I mean, I think especially with the guy who's running it, he's like, he's doing it for all the right reasons.
Yep.
When he, is asked why Tesla, he's like, they're the ones with the best technology. What else would I choose? It shows you that he gets it.
Yep.
So yeah, having it be run by him, I think is going to make a huge difference, as opposed to it just being like, yeah, we run a cab company. This is the cheapest way to run a cab. Like it wouldn't carry the same weight as having these green cabs. And again, yeah, to have people be like, oh my gosh, I would just ride around all day in them if it's a Tesla.
Yeah.
Huge. It's really important. Now, there's a story I want to do.
Oh, yeah?
I went on a little road trip all the way to Florida.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I stopped in Disney World. Had to because of the girlfriend, obviously. And we went on Test Track, which is at Epcot.
Okay.
And it's run by Chevrolet.
Oh.
There are all of these prototypes and concept cars, and you're walking through, and they're all talking about
it's like the
concept cars.
future?
It's not. It's just a bunch of car designers.
Putting concept cars?
They're just talking about how amazing concept cars are.
Okay.
And it was really, really telling. Like super duper telling, because basically they were just like, oh, it's all about the lines and it's so important, all of this stuff. Then you actually get to design your own car.
Okay.
So you go into the studio and you draw a line of what you want the shape of the roof line of the car to be. And then you get to choose what the fuel source is. Now, what would you guess would be the...
Did they offer electric?
They did offer electric.
Ooh.
But they made it less powerful.
Of course they did.
It was a trade-off between efficiency and power. And so on one end of the power spectrum, they had fully solar powered,
Okay.
which is fair. You have solar powered over here, which is the most efficient. Then you have battery, electric.
Okay.
Then you have hybrid.
Okay.
Then you have gas powered. Then you have two that I didn't even get a chance to really read, because you only have like 3 minutes to design your car before you go on this on this race. And it's basically like fusion and another one that like nano something. It's like stuff that doesn't exist.
So to get your mind off the electric, maybe, like as if that's
Right.
not really new technology.
Or they're just mixing it in with a bunch of,
Right.
frou not real stuff.
Right.
So you choose your car, and then
Well, real someday.
right, and then you go on your Test Track experience. You get in an electric car.
Okay.
All of them are electric.
Oh, okay,
The
the
real
little-
cars themselves, the things you get in,
So
are electric.
are they
because-
go-karts?
Obviously, no. It's more like a cart.
Okay.
Of anything. I think it's being pulled along underneath.
Oh, okay.
But that's obviously electrically powered.
Okay.
And so you go on this thing and you go very fast.
Okay.
And the whole time it's telling you which cars are more powerful, which cars are more efficient, which cars are more capable, because all the different changes you make to your car change.
Did they show the bolt and the volt at all?
No.
No.
No. You
Okay,
could
way to go,
design a
I mean,
bolt if you
here's
wanted
your
to, right.
chance, Chevy, to advertise to your customers.
So wait, so then you leave Test Track and you enter out onto like a showroom floor where they have all the Chevy cars, except for the Chevy Bolt. Can't look at that one.
I mean,
over
I
there.
understand the Volt, they're not going to make it anymore, but the Bolt, I mean, come on.
Right.
Wow.
So
So, like, was there a Silverado?
Of course, there was a Silverado, right? And you could design a pickup truck if you wanted in the thing.
Wow.
So I don't know. I just thought I'd share that little experience.
No,
I'm sure it's not
that's
a new
America.
experience. Yeah, exactly. It's this like, and it was so like the concepts that they were showing were just like, where are the batteries? Or like, like, how are you gonna make this? How does it not tip over? Like they're just like, we're just designing, we're just drawing. Like it just shows you how much some car designers are just all about just sketching Hot Wheels cars all day.
So we reported to you a year ago that Elon committed to helping any Flint, Michigan residents who had contaminated water in their houses. Then Elon committed to helping bring clean water to all of Flint's schools when he learned that drinking water fountains in the schools were still unavailable. This is years after the crisis, by the way, was uncovered. And still, like, Flint hadn't figured out how to fix things. So Elon had to come in and be like, damn it, let me fix things.
Is their water better now?
Well, their water is better. They are replacing a lot of the pipes and they are fixing things, yes. But the water fountains and stuff were not changed out, and so they couldn't drink water at school. So Elon had to fix that. So Elon's foundation donated almost $500,000 of water filters and water stations to the schools. The city of Flint has announced that they'll be holding a community meeting to update residents about this project on November 12th. So we'll get some more information then. But so far, Musk's foundation has donated $423,000 to provide Google Chromebooks to all of Flint's 7th and 8th graders. And he's donated about that same amount for these water filter stations in the schools. I wanted to point that out because, it was covered a year ago when he said he'd do it, but he has done it, and that's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't, again, like everyone wants to just be like, oh, it was a publicity stunt. He just did it for publicity. He followed through on it. He did it. And then where's the publicity now?
Right.
Where is he constantly bringing this up? Like on Twitter, like, well, actually I helped out. No, he doesn't say a thing. He donated over $1 million, and yet we don't have to hear about it.
Right, exactly. So here is a touching film that ends with a reminder of why we do this. Check this out. This is from Aaron Hummelt.
It's a little sad.
Hey, it's like I'm reading a book, and it's a book I deeply love. And I'm reading it slowly now, and the words of our story are so real and true. I can feel you with me right now. But where am I now? Am I lost? I'm finding myself in this endless space between the words now. It's a place outside of the physical world, and it's the place where I am now. It seemed pointless to resist. And when the darkest hour came to me too quick, like a rug being pulled out from under me, because before, every time I fell, you were there, and every time I struggled, you were there. As I fell deeper into us, there seemed to be no ground for my feet to touch. Just falling and falling. And when I thought I would fall forever, I woke up, like out of a nightmare. It was so unreal. But I saw you in this moment, and everything was true. I felt the wind blowing around us. I saw the rain on your face. And I could smell you when I put my arms around you. Everything stood still. No falling. and I hope that they're still there when I arrive where I'm forced to go. And if you ever get here, come find me, and nothing will ever tear us apart. No mountain, no flood, no storm, no distance, no excuse. Maybe this thought will comfort you until we see each other again. But I want you to live your life. I want you to live the life you always told me about. See the oceans and coasts. See the forests and woods. See the valleys and mountains, rivers and creeks. I'm sorry you have to let me go. And I'm sorry I can't finish reading the lines of our story as much as I want to. Bye.
So yeah, at the end of the film, you see that it says every year 7 million people die prematurely from CO2 emissions. And that is from the World Health Organization in 2017. That's not just from some guy up in his parents' attic or something. And pretty astounding if you kind of wrap your head around this for a second, that 7 million people die prematurely. If in your neck of the woods, thousands and tens of thousands of people were dying of something, I think it would become the number one topic of conversation.
Right.
But because we can't see this killer, we're like, well, it doesn't exist.
I think that we need to get better at figuring out what this is, and really visualizing it, because I don't think that we see it. I don't think that we understand it.
No. So this I found very interesting. I mean, it's not cars, it's not EVs, it's not sustainable, but it's
not brand new. Like, this isn't this week.
Well, it is this week in the sense that you can actually buy this now. So this is the launch of Boston Dynamics Spot, which is their, well, check it out.
It's a robot.
It's a robot.
You can buy, hang on. You can buy
I know.
a freaking robot.
That can do a lot. Like, I know that, most of you watching are like, well, it's just a robotic dog. It walks along. Yeah, it doesn't do all the amazing things that like their Atlas robot can do yet, but it's I think because they needed a starting point, something that was affordable. Now, you can't just go buy it. You have to actually apply to buy it, because I think they're really afraid that certain companies will get it, tear it apart, and start making knockoffs, which when Jesse and I were in London, we saw a knockoff. And so they're already out there. But here's the thing. I want you guys to just stop for a second and picture a world, maybe a few years from now, where you're walking down the street and there are some robotic spot dogs and there's some robotic robots that are
humanoids.
Humanoids that are, raking leaves or digging a trench, because that is going to happen. If I had said this to you 10 or 20 years ago, you'd be like, well, that sounds great, Zach, but how do you make such a robot? Well, they've made it. Like, we know it exists now. The technology is there. And through these advanced batteries and so forth, it can actually, like, this lasts for 90 minutes before you have to recharge it. So it's going to get better and better. Imagine a day very soon when these menial tasks can be done by a robot. Once that happens, and once the price point gets to the point where it replaces what it would cost to hire humans to do it, it's going to explode. It's going to be everywhere. And when that day happens, which I propose is going to be way sooner than you guys think, it's going to change everything.
Right. And it's just a matter of like figuring out how this can be good for people, because I'll be honest, a lot of people are worried about losing their jobs to robots.
Sure, but let's say that a common job is doing things like digging trenches, right? And if a robot can replace that job and it frees up people to be able to do less menial jobs, I say that's going to be great, because that's what technology has done all throughout history.
And specifically trench digging, let's just stick on that. You can buy a trench digger. Sure. Right, it's a big thing with a big thing, and it's a big machine with a wheel, and it digs a trench for you. Right, it's not like a robot that has a shovel.
Right.
So we already have that kind of thing. So when people are like, "Well, what about the people who dig trenches?" There is such a machine already.
Right,
it's a machine. But what you could have with this sort of multi-purpose, roughly human shaped thing is that humans are good at doing a lot of different things. So if you buy a robot that can dig a trench, it could also unload a truck full of heavy boxes. It could do a lot of different
things.
Because
let's go to Jesse's example. If you went back to the 1920s, you would see gangs of people, of men, digging trenches or building roads or whatever.
And moving giant rocks with rope and, and stuff like that.
And so when you have a truck machine that can do the job of 20 men, yes, there's still a driver in it, but you've just replaced 19 people.
Right.
And so this robot idea I'm having, yes, it's going to replace, 1 or 2 or 5 people, just like earlier technology did. Now, I don't think we are like kicking trucks by the side of the road like, damn you, truck, you took my job.
Right.
We just accept it. And I think it's harder here because it's going to look humanoid and it's going to act like a human and do, the digging motion and all that kind of stuff. But it's going to happen, just like trucks came along and happened.
Right, and we are better off as a society because we have, well, it's complicated, but obviously, because we don't have to do a lot of this manual stuff, we have invented machines to do a lot of different manual things. We live in this very wealthy world where we can go buy fresh avocados from the supermarket. Like, there's a million different things that are really great for humans in there. We need to start to learn how to do that responsibly.
Right.
But having a robot that is battery powered is going to be another step towards, hopefully, a really great life for humans.
And as Jesse kind of mentioned to me earlier today, like if you had the Spot dog and you went for a hike in the woods, you could, have the Spot walking with you with some water on it and a tent, and it could be your pack mule basically for when you go for a hike in the woods. That's one job for it. Or like right now they're showing it on a construction site, so you could have it just like, go get all the bricks. Like, that's where we're starting now, but I'm telling you, it's going to speed up super duper fast to the point where you're going to see them as you walk down the street.
Right. And it's going to speed up no matter whether we want it to happen or not.
Right.
Like, I wish it could be that we could be like, oh, let's all sit down and we'll figure out the best way to implement this.
Well, and that's why I'm bringing it up now. I think that you smart people watching this, you are some of the smart people out there. You should sit down and talk about this with family, friends, whoever, engineers in your family and so forth.
And then get involved in that type of field, because it's going to be huge.
Right.
If robots can replace all sorts of human jobs, or just there is an induced demand factor here. Like if we could have, at our house, just imagine you have this robot that can do some menial tasks for you. You can do all the things that you want done around your house. Like,
Exactly.
oh, I have to do that, but I don't have time today. I just don't have time. I can't do that right now. I have to go do something else.
Right.
Suddenly you have the robot just like, oh, robot, move all the leaves, like rake up all the leaves and stuff. Great, the robot's doing that. Oh, I have to paint the house.
Well, and so many people talk about it in the negative, like it's going to take jobs. There's the other flip side of that, which is the opportunity. So if you are a business owner who, let's say, runs a landscaping company, and you're like, let me get in on the robots early, so that my whole fleet will be robots. You will have, cheaper prices because your robots will work 24/7 and will be able to, do stuff that no human could do. And so, like, you will have an advantage. If you wait too long, you'll probably put out of business and you'll have to go do something else. I mean, but the future is a lot of future jobs are going to revolve around robots, programming them, innovating new things that they can do, sensors, like all that stuff.
And so we do need to have a conversation about how we share this new wealth that we have unlocked with technology.
Right.
Because at the moment, a lot of the wealth gets funneled just straight to the very tippity tip top of everything.
Right.
And it doesn't matter, like a lot of it doesn't even really revolve that much around technology. A lot of it is based on human labor.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a lot of human labor is exploited. So we're not getting the fairness that we should be in a society where technology has raised humanity out of the mud.
Right.
Well,
and look at just simple things like before the 1930s, once we learned from the stock market crash that you shouldn't allow companies to reinvest their money back into their own stock.
A lot of things we learned from the stock market crash.
We
of the
then
30s.
forgot.
Yeah.
So now we changed the laws again so that now companies do. They do share buybacks all the time. And it's like, oh, that's a good thing. It's raising my share values. But what it does do is it means that the company is like, well, we don't really have to innovate. We'll just buy our own stock. So you have companies now that just buy their own stock, don't innovate, and then they wonder why they're all going out of business.
Well, and we learned a lot of things after the stock market crash about regulation of corporations. Basically, it was like, oh, it was not good to have such huge corporations getting whatever they wanted out of the government. It was sort of laissez-faire capitalism type thing. It was good that we regulated them right after, especially right after World War II. There was a lot of regulation. There was high taxes on the wealthy, and a huge period of growth during that time of wealth for everyone. And then basically what happened is these major corporations were able to buy their way through Congress and just get whatever they needed passed. So it was like, we want to do this thing. Can you lax the regulations on it? And this has led to where we are today. This has led to climate change because, again, the companies knew about it back in the 80s. So we would have been working on it had we had the proper regulations in place and had we had the government with the will of the people behind them instead of the will of the corporations. They would have said, wait a minute, you're going to be changing the climate? Well, we don't want to do that. So you're going to need to change the way you do things, right? That was the role of government. That was supposed to happen.
Well, there's more on that coming up. So let's keep moving. All right. So this next story is Global Unmanned Spray System. Check this out.
There's no question autonomous machinery is making its way into the agriculture industry. At the World Ag Expo this week, I had a chance to talk with Gary Thompson, Marketing Director for Global Unmanned Spray Systems. We talked about their sprayer project that they've actually been working on for a number of years.
Yes, that's correct. We started developing the sprayer in 2014 just to deal with our own labor challenges in our own commercial spraying business. Very challenging to develop this machine. Took us about 3.5 years to get it to a point where it was workable. We debuted it at the Tulare Farm Show last year and showed everyone what we'd been working on for so long. And right after that, we took 4 sprayers, started spraying commercially with those, and were able to spray just over 20,000 acres last year with those 4 machines. Just trying to fine tune it, work any bugs out. Now we're at the point where we're going to get into production and start sales this year. The user interface allows one person to monitor up to about 8 to 10 of these sprayers at a time. And basically he can sit in a pickup or in like a Polaris Ranger on the side of the field with a laptop, and he just watches all the sprayers as they're in the field doing their thing. It's important to know that the sprayers are fully autonomous. They are not being controlled by the operator. He's just basically watching them, watching the material rates that they're putting out, and just making sure that they're doing their job.
As I sat in the pickup truck, closely monitoring my autonomous sprayer via laptop, I quickly realized this, in fact, could be the future of farming. The folks from Gus were actually taking deposits on sprayers this week at the World Ag Expo. So friends, it won't be long before autonomous sprayers are going to be seen in the Central Valley of California. Reporting on technology for This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
Yeah, so we told you about, automation that's coming for certain jobs, and this is proof, right? The CEO of CFSLP, Dave Crinklaw, says that they can now spray an average of about 5,000 acres per day versus 40 acres a day when he started back in the 80s, and that was him and his dad running a sprayer. So just think about that for a second. You got an autonomous sprayer. Now, I don't particularly like these sprayers because they are, powered by gasoline or diesel
pesticides,
and they're spraying pesticides. So I'm not like in favor of this. I'm just trying to show that this is happening as we speak. That this guy, who basically him and his dad were just spraying company, they're just like, there's a way better way to do this. And so this guy, he's not like the smartest, engineering guy in the world. He just is like, oh yeah, I can figure this out. And 3.5 years later, they have it. Now, if he can figure it out, that means that it obviously can be done.
Right.
And I mean, I hope that they in the future do this with electric, and I hope they don't just spray trees with horrible pesticides and herbicides. But what I'm saying here is that now one guy sitting in a van can run 8 to 10 of these. So there's your, reduction in manpower that I just talked about. But this is happening. And so anyone who's like, well, I don't think this should happen. Well, you can think it all you want. It is happening as we speak.
Right. And again, it's important to either it's important to influence it. It's important to, be the guiding voice of reason with thinking ahead and realizing what issues might come into play and then talking about it and making changes. And those changes aren't just going to come about by your conversations necessarily with, people at Thanksgiving. It's going to come from changes.
And also science fiction. Watch more of it, read more of it, because it opens your imagination to what could be possible outcomes in the future. There's plenty of these shows like Humans, where you have cyborgs in the future, and it's just cool to look at that, not like from just purely science fiction, but to be like, well, how much of that could come true? Could all of it come true? Like, would we have laws against certain robots, and would we have laws of how to treat robots?
Right.
And
I think Black Mirror is really important because, we have all these science fiction classics from the Foundation series, a lot of Asimov, a lot of, but these guys didn't know about some of the upcoming technologies. They could only be like, I guess it'd be robots, and how would we control them? We'd give them some rules that they had to follow. But now we're actually able to be like, oh, we have robots, and we know how we make them run. So, and we know a little bit about AI, so maybe we should be talking about that. So I think that is really important to be, not just reading old sci-fi, but to be reading new sci-fi that's updated with some of the latest stuff.
I mean, like if you had an Atlas robot, so like, it looks like a person has 2 arms, it has legs. Like, what would be some of the jobs that you would trust it to do or have it do? Would you have it walk your dog? Would you have it paint your house? Like, because once you start thinking like that, and you're like, oh wow, so wait a minute, there could be a robot painting my house 24/7.
Right, your house could almost always be freshly painted if you wanted.
Right, or my lawn will always be trimmed, or my driveway will always be this. It's like it can snow blow my driveway,
right? Or just things that are slow and methodical. I mean, it could mow your lawn by walking around with a pair of scissors. If it's constantly doing it, then
weeding.
The time thing doesn't really affect anything.
Like weeding, like something that nobody wants to do. It could do really well.
Right.
All right. So check this out. You guys probably saw this article, or someone in your sphere told you about it, right? This is the Business Insider article about how Tesla Solar had some fires and people are upset about it. And so if you read the article, which, if you have the time, read it, you'll see that it's a very sophomorically written article. And I wonder why that is. Who wrote this article?
Lynette Lopez. So there you go. You have a sophomoric writer.
She actually got demoted, She used to be a columnist at Business Insider. Now she's just allowed to write the occasional side piece like this. So maybe she's getting her comeuppance. I don't know.
Right, yeah. I mean, if you read deeply into this article, basically she interviewed 2 people who had fires on their houses from Tesla Solar. 2 people out of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of Tesla Solar customers.
One thing she says over and over in the article: Tesla did not get back to me for comment. Well, you're Lynette Lopez.
I know, really.
Why do you think they would touch you with the 10-foot pole?
That's the weird part, though, is that nobody got back to her for comment. So she's writing this, just talking to 2 people.
Right.
And then you get to write a whole article about it?
Why didn't she reach out to the thousands of people who have solar like me, who have had it for years and love it and never had a problem?
There was a really telling part of the article where basically one of the people who had to have their solar systems shut off because it lit on fire said that their electrical bill went up after they shut off the solar system. Yadoy, like, obviously. And isn't that a positive thing to show how solar lowers electrical bills? Like, it's such a obvious take on this story, instead of being a little more objective and being like, okay, I'm going to find out the number of solar residential installs that Tesla has done, taking the number of fires reported, doing a little math and saying like, oh, it's 0.003% or whatever.
Because we're not denying that there's problems with any large company that does a large number of anything.
Right.
I mean, there's going to be occasional problems. We're not saying they're 100% perfect.
Right.
But one thing that, as she brought up with this case in Colorado, one day before the fire started, Tesla called the owner and said, we're seeing some anomalies with your system. We're going to send a crew out next week. Now, It's unfortunate that they didn't catch it sooner or send the crew out sooner, but they did know something was wrong and they were going to fix it.
And this fire was tiny.
Yeah.
It was able to be put out by the neighbor. The neighbor of this woman who had her solar panels light on fire. First of all, there were only 3 panels on fire, and the neighbor was able to put out the fire with a garden hose.
Right.
It didn't burn down her house.
Right.
It was just a minor inconvenience that, there's probably a little bit of fire damage from the panels being on fire.
Right.
The panels are destroyed.
Right.
And now Tesla is going to replace them, assumedly.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the insurance is going to cover it and so forth. So,
Right.
So I did a little digging into Business Insider to see who owns them. And so from 2013 to 2018, Jeff Bezos held a stake in Business Insider. And we all know that he's not a huge fan of Elon Musk.
And this is when Lynette Lopez was hired.
Exactly. And then as of today, Business Insider is wholly owned by Axel Springer SE, which is Europe's largest digital publisher with numerous multimedia news brands such as Bild, Die Welt, Fact, and more than 15,000 employees. Now, it generated a total revenue of 3.3 billion euros in 2015, and Bild was one of their first big money makers. And I don't know if you know what Bild is, but it's kind of the German equivalent of a British tabloid. Mm-hmm. And so what do you think, Axel learned when they got Bild up and running in the 50s? They learned, we make a lot of money from trashy articles. Right. So a lot of the things they own are trashy.
Right.
And yeah, that sells. I mean, unfortunately, that's what sells newspapers and magazines and stories, right? And that's exactly what Lynette Lopez did. If she wrote an article that was like, most people happy with their solar panels,
right,
I guess they figure people wouldn't read it. I would, but that's not what she writes. Right. So, yeah.
It's just annoying that this kind of stuff exists. It obviously exists everywhere, like probably about everything. If you if you were into cryptocurrency, I'm sure you'd be annoyed by a bunch of things that a lot of different people write about cryptocurrency. Or if you were against cryptocurrency, it'd be the opposite. Like, right. I understand that, but for this specifically, when we're talking about humanity's survival on the planet, because obviously we want to get away from fossil fuels, this is where we get annoyed. Obviously, if this is something, talking about the Boston Red Sox versus the Yankees, we'd be like, oh, okay, whatever, but we're biased. In this case, we're just biased towards, humans. I don't understand the disconnect here.
It's just like, Lynette, focus on companies that are actually doing harm if you want to write about that. So, go focus on some fossil fuel companies that are killing people every day.
Right. All right, well, let's stop focusing on the Tesla bears and let's start looking at some Tesla bears.
What?
Some bears.
Oh, right. Yeah, this is Andrew Whittle. He's a Model 3 owner, and he described this incident. He said, I was driving my Model 3 Performance near Glacier National Park in Montana in the evening. Most of the road trip from Utah to Montana was done on autopilot, including this moment where you can see the car goes from cruising at 50 miles an hour to a full stop when sensing this family of bears. The mama bear immediately jumps back out onto the road to get between us and her cubs. She then gives us the death stare till we back up away from her two cubs. This was an amazing demonstration of how much better the autopilot function has gotten since I received the car. Not only did autopilot sense the family of bears in the dark while the car was going 50 miles an hour, but the dash cam feature recorded the whole thing in great resolution. Thanks again, Tesla. Yeah, so I mean, as I was watching this the first time, I didn't see the bears. Like, I would have stopped way later than the car did.
Right. And good thing that it stopped so far away because it's a bear. This isn't someone who just like pulled out of their driveway like, oh no, whoops, I pulled out of my driveway. This is a bear.
A mama bear protecting her cubs.
There is nothing more dangerous on earth practically than a mama bear trying to protect her cubs.
Yeah.
Speaking
Smart
of this,
job, by the way, Andrew, backing up the car.
A very good idea.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind in case you run across a family of bears.
Yeah.
When I was driving here to record, I was driving along and some idiot pulled out of his driveway without looking, and I had to slam on my brakes because I would have hit him.
Mm-hmm.
I got the warning, and I'm glad I got the warning.
Did the warning give you like a little extra time to hit the brake? Or?
I kind of saw him far away because I'm very attentive when I'm driving. But like if I were coming around a corner or something, that alarm would have really helped. I really wasn't expecting him to go because
you thought he would have seen you. And yeah, what is it about people backing up? They just think there's
he wasn't even backing out.
Wait, he was pulling straight out?
He was pulling straight out of his driveway. He's taking a left.
Oh my gosh!
Wow. I mean the braking was really good. I felt like I had even more braking than what I needed. Like I wasn't even pushing the pedal all the way down.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, right? Be a different show if I had hit him.
So last Monday, London's Metropolitan Police banned all Extinction Rebellion protests and started to clear campers out of Trafalgar Square. So maybe we should just kind of remind people about Extinction Rebellion. So they're doing pacifist demonstrations. They're not hurting anybody. They're not throwing things or lighting fires. They're doing kind of interesting, I would say, demonstrations. Like once they took a fire truck and filled it up with red food coloring water and sprayed it to show that, like, you know, we're killing the world.
Mm-hmm.
They gave a tree to every member of parliament. Even Boris Johnson accepted his tree. So, I mean, they're trying to get their point across. But I guess the police have had enough, so they've decided that they are going to start arresting the protesters. But this hasn't stopped Extinction Rebellion. They are still holding protests on the underground and in other locations, including on top of Big Ben. Now, George Monbiot, who is a writer for The Guardian, and he's a well-known journalist, he decided to get himself arrested. Check this out.
Well, thank you all. So I've come to join Extinction Rebellion today in the hope of being arrested by the police. The police have imposed this Section 14 order on the whole of Extinction Rebellion, saying that we are not allowed to assemble. This seems to be a direct refutation of our human right to peaceful assembly. I'm hoping the police will arrest me for this. Mass arrest is a highly effective tactic. It's proved effective for Extinction Rebellion. It was effective for the civil rights movement, for the suffragettes, many other movements throughout history. By showing that we're prepared to jeopardize our liberty, that we're prepared to make a sacrifice, other people take us more seriously.
Right, so I'm now under arrest, which is the best place to be when we're facing planetary disaster. By being arrested in defense of the living planet, I feel I can look my children and maybe one day my grandchildren in the eye.
This has come from government. I think it's probably come from Priti Patel, her department, because I know that she seems to regard any attempt to challenge the system as illegitimate.
To stand up against that destruction, I feel, is our human duty.
I think the police have made a massive strategic mistake here. If they show that they're going to ban protest, then they bring a lot of people together who stand not just for the protection of our life support systems, but also for the protection of our basic human right to protest. So thank you, police. You've just brought us together in a really big assembly.
They can arrest us, they're not going to arrest in rebellion.
I think it's interesting that he mentioned that, peaceful protest is a basic human right. It's something that was never taught to me in school, but is something that is a thing. We do have basic human rights as humans that we've given ourselves. Obviously, there's no magical stone that we read off of, but
we were in Trafalgar Square a couple weeks ago, and while we were there, there's a bunch of street musicians and people selling stuff or whatever. And I understand that blocking the square with the protest is inconvenient, right? And that you have to have some kind of rules or whatever about this and that. But they're there to save the planet. Like, they're there for such an important reason. And I do think that George is right. The police have made a giant mistake here. By arresting them, I think you're helping them.
I think that anyone who cares about freedom of just about anyone is going to take note of this, that, anytime people are being arrested for peaceful protest, usually that means that nothing good is happening.
Right.
Again, peaceful protest was something that, happened during the civil rights era. Basically, all social change has occurred in some part to peaceful protest.
Yeah. Now, so during this arrest, they also arrested Mr. Broccoli. Check this out.
We're non-violent. Go into the shop.
I believe they did. They would.
Give keys a chance. Hiya, we're Animal Rebellion. Animal Rebellion. Animal Rebellion, non-violent.
And then Mr. Broccoli appeared on Good Morning Britain the next morning.
I'm just a humble broccoliner, but I want people to be able to feel like they can come and take part in this protest.
Yeah, but you have to explain to them why you believe a plant-based diet is actually going to be effective. And if you don't know the science, how can you do that?
It's quite easy.
Well, hang on, sorry,
Well,
we're
hang on,
talking
let
to Mr. Broccoli.
Well, I am just a broccoli.
Right, but Mr. Broccoli, you have a point to make, don't you, other than just dressing up in a costume?
Yes, my point is that environmentally speaking, we're in incredibly hot water, and we do need to transition
you don't
to a
know why,
plant-based food system.
You don't know the science. You don't know why you think we're in hot water.
Well, I'm just a broccoli at the end of the day.
I get that.
Yeah.
But what are you doing there?
Sorry, I've just got a call. That's the wrong way up. Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So uncomfortable how they treated Mr. Broccoli like he's just such an awful guy, right? He's just trying to raise awareness about something that's super important, and they're just trying to make him seem like a loser, even though I respect him immensely for doing what he did.
Right.
Now, another person I respect for doing what she believes in is Jane Fonda. She's decided to get arrested every Friday. Check this out.
You've devoted so much of your adult life to this kind of activism. What specifically and at what moment did you trigger into this action whereby you get up from California and you're home and you move to Washington to do this?
I can tell you exactly. It was Labor Day weekend, and I was reading Naomi Klein's new book called On Fire, The Burning Case for a Green New Deal. And I was hearing Greta Thunberg, the Swedish climate striker, and it really hit me how urgent this issue is. And that I wasn't doing enough. I drive an electric car, I recycle, I've gotten rid of plastics, but that's a good starting place. It's not a good finishing place. This is a collective crisis, requires collective action, and so I decided to use my celebrity to try to raise the sense of urgency, and I moved to Washington, and I'm going to get arrested every Friday.
Every Friday. Well, I'm going to ask you, and of course, Greta Thunberg, we're very proud to have interviewed her on this show. Naomi Klein has been on this program as well. But let me ask you, because you, I think, mentioned that the new type of arrest, i.e. these plastic ties that you were arrested with, are very different from the metal handcuffs that you endured in previous protests, and that you are 82 or so, and it's kind of difficult to navigate into the back of a police van without your arms.
That's the least of it. You've been talking about the Syrian crisis and the terrible situation that's happened there. That war, I am told, began because of the terrible drought that happened there. I mean, there is so much going on in the world. And over it all is this ticking time bomb. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Crisis told us last year that we only have, last year they said 12 years, now it's 11 years. We have 11 years left to try to turn this fossil fuel disaster around so that we don't completely past the tipping point and it becomes untenable to govern, untenable to have a stable economy or any kind of human rights or anything. There's just going to be one disaster on top of the other. But we do have time. We have time, and it's going to require that people in every country all around the world organize and mobilize, and if necessary, bring governments to a halt if we can't make them do the right thing. I mean, it wouldn't have to be this radical and fundamental if the fossil fuel industry hadn't lied to us for 30 years. They knew 30 years ago that they were hurting the environment, and they knew what the implications were, and they lied and hoodwinked us. If we had started doing what needed to be done 30 years ago, it could have been an incremental transition away from fossil fuels. And now this is an urgent crisis, and we have to move very, very fast. All the while taking great care that the families and communities and workers who depend on the fossil fuel industry for their livelihood are going to be not just trained for the new jobs, but paid union wages with benefits and overtime and Social Security and everything that they need to support families and to live properly. We have to be very, very sure that those workers are taken care of.
Yeah, so good on her. She read about what's going on the planet, watched people like Greta Thunberg, and was like, you know what? I'm famous. I should use my celebrity to do something. And I just don't take this too lightly here. Like, getting arrested is not fun. I've never been arrested, so I don't even know. But like, protesting is one thing. Protesting and then getting arrested and then deciding, you know what? I'll friggin' do it every Friday. Wow.
Right. And I think it's ridiculous that, peaceful protest is suddenly an arrestable offense.
Yeah. All right. So we promised that you would see it here. This is the Plaid Model S prototype. It's got a lot of cool new features. So as we're watching it drive around the track, Jesse, why don't you tell us like what we should be looking for?
Sure. So we're seeing two different prototypes here. We're seeing the red one and the blue one. So I'm just going to call them the red and the blue one. The blue one has, I think, the most number of stuff on it. So we have this sort of front lip, lower lip there. That, I think, is an aerodynamic sort of thing. We also have that rear diffuser, so those kind of fins in the back underneath the car. That's used to increase downforce on the car. So it's lowering the pressure of air underneath the car by by squeezing the air, speeding it up, pulling the car down, which obviously gives you better driving characteristics. You may also notice that the car looks just kind of cooler. It's because the fenders are bigger, and that is because the tires are bigger. They're wider.
But you know what?
Well,
I don't care about any of this because this is just for fancy race people. I can't get one of these.
Elon tweeted, and he said the final configuration used at Nürburgring. Well, actually, Elon tweeted, and he said the final configuration used at Nürburgring to set record will go into production around summer 2020. This is not merely for the track. So what he's basically saying is that whichever one sets the record for the highest speed, they're going to produce as the Plaid version of the Model S. Now, again, this car is very different than your typical Model S. Again, the bigger wheels, I would assume, influence efficiency quite a bit. More rubber on the road means less efficient. You also might notice there's kind of like that air intake or extake on the back of the front wheel out on the side.
That looks cool.
Gives it a really cool look. I think it's all about track dynamics. So again,
no, it's all about cool looking. Come on.
It definitely looks a lot cooler than your typical Model S. And I think that they're going to be selling this car for a lot more than they typically would.
Wow.
Again, because they're selling basically a race car.
Well, that was a long Patreon bonus story.
Yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that you enjoy these Patreon bonus stories.
And please consider joining us on our live stream. So, I mean, if you're maybe you're already at the $8 and above level, or maybe you're close to it, but like now with the new Zoom feature, I think it's really fun to be able to talk to you guys. So if you want to hang out with us once a month, please join that and try it out.
Yeah, but we look forward to talking to you next week. So until then,
now you know.
Now you know.